Senator from New Hampshire.
Madam President, I note the absence of a quorum.
The clerk will call the roll. Mr. Alexander.
And the Senate's in a quorum call now. Been hearing a lot of debate throughout the day on the shutdown. While they're in this quorum call, we're going to go to the White House briefing room. Press Secretary Jay Carney is there now speaking, and we'll be showing you the scene from the White House briefing room here. And we'll be back to the main floor as soon as the senator takes the floor.
So, having said that, I'll restate that we need to continue to have conversations, and the House and the Senate and Democrats and Republicans need to continue to have conversations. It is our view that it's very important to remove the threat of default from this process and to open the government as soon as possible.
But if entitlements are put on the table specifically, which they seem to, the white-minded GOP seems to have done, does the President need revenues to be specified as well, that is also going to be...
Again, Chair, I'm not going to, because we're talking about a very fluid situation. The President's position is reflected in his budget when you talk about comprehensive, broad, long-term budget negotiations that try to achieve a comprehensive long-term deal. And the President's position has always been that we need to, when it comes to deficit reduction, tackle that in a balanced way. And that's reflected in his budget with through both savings from entitlement reforms and savings through tax reform. We're not at the point of negotiations like that. The President's been eager to have those negotiations all year long and has met repeatedly with Republicans over the course of the year in an effort to try to find that common ground on these very issues. And he looks forward to doing so again. But we need to continue to explore the possibility of resolving this real and current conflict that has led them to shut down the government and threaten default, and then we can move on to broader negotiations over how we achieve our budget priorities. Is that satisfactory?
Jay, on that question of a
Chuck.
on the issue of, can you just sort of clarify, are you negotiating something or not? Because the stance has been no negotiation, but there's clearly, and I know you guys are,
sure.
I mean, it seems clear that if the Republicans open up the government, you guys have agreed to give them something in return. Is that, or else you wouldn't be in the midst of trading proposals? Not to get pedantic here, but it does seem as if you have moved off the position of we're not negotiating.
Well, I think you need to remember what our position is specifically, and I understand the question. The President is absolutely committed to the proposition that the American people should not and cannot pay ransom in exchange for Congress doing its job when it comes to its fundamental responsibilities of ensuring that the government stays open, or even more importantly, ensuring that the United States pays its bills. When it comes to the debt ceiling, which will be breached for the first time in our history in just a few days if Congress doesn't take the necessary action, it is absolutely his view that demands for ransom of any kind of extraction of a concession from him or from the American people through him are unacceptable.
Without objection.
And Madam President, I ask unanimous consent that I may speak for as long as the time I consume.
Without objection.
Thank you. Madam President, as you know and as I know, this is the 11th day of a completely manufactured crisis, a self-inflicted wound that came about because our colleagues on the other side of the aisle are obsessed with repealing a law that's called the Affordable Care Act, a law that passed almost 4 years ago, whose benefits have taken root, and I'll go over those benefits for all Americans, and for a group of Americans that have had a really hard time getting insurance. We're just beginning to see them be able to sign up for health insurance, for some of them for the first time. And because our colleagues are so obsessed with repealing this law, which, as I said, passed almost 4 years ago, which was upheld by the Supreme Court as being totally constitutional, and about which there was a presidential election and a Senate election in which the people who wanted to keep this law and, of course, make it better won, the Republicans can't accept it. And as a result, they have shut down the government. Now, you wouldn't know it if you listened to the speeches now, because they kind of changed. And now they're saying they want cuts in Medicare and Social Security. That's what they want now. But when you go back to 11 days ago, before the government shutdown, Speaker Boehner was crystal clear. He said the American people don't want a government shutdown, but they don't want Obamacare either. And the government shut down. They didn't listen to us. We explained to them if the government shuts down, that doesn't stop the Affordable Care Act, because those funds come from a different part of the government. They don't come from the appropriated monies. At least 85% of the Affordable Care Act comes from another part of the government. So we begged them and we told them, if you shut down the government, health care is going to go forward anyway. Why on earth would you shut down the government? They didn't listen. Now people in the country are saying, what are you guys doing? And I am prayerfully hopeful that they will turn around and let us reopen this government, the government of the greatest country on earth, and that they will also allow us to pay our bills and stop the possibility of a default, which, if it ever happened, would be the first time in our history. So yes, we're in the middle of a crisis, but it's manufactured, it's made up. And if you think it's about deficits, take a look at what happened since President Obama came in. Deficits have been cut in half. So it can't be about deficits. And the Affordable Care Act is not going to be stopped. So what is this all about? A temper tantrum? A childish way to handle a situation you're not happy about? Let me tell you, just so Republicans who are listening to me know, that I've served with 5 presidents since I came to Washington, first as a House member and as a senator then, representing the largest state in the Union, the most fantastic state in the Union, but that's just my personal view, California. 5 presidents, 3 Republicans, 2 Democrats. Obviously, I didn't agree with these presidents all the time. Sometimes I really disagreed with them, like over the Iraq War and tax breaks for billionaires. Both of those added mightily to the deficit. I opposed those. But I accepted the fact that all I could do was work to change things in a democratic way. Try to pass legislation on those issues, to bring the troops home, to make sure that everyone pays their fair share. I didn't win those issues. And we all know, yeah, there's lots of times you vote against the debt ceiling as a show of your displeasure, but we had never brought down the full faith and credit of the United States. And the last time the Republicans tried this, a couple of years ago, the Dow Jones Industrial Average plunged, and it cost us $19 billion. You would think they learned a lesson about it, but they didn't. And you'd think they'd learn a lesson about the Newt Gingrich shutdown that had their poll numbers plunging then. We need to behave like grown-ups, and I am prayerful and I am hopeful that we can see the talks continue that are starting here in the United States Senate across party lines to resolve this. But let's be clear. It's easy to solve this problem, Madam President. You know, that's the great news. It's easy to solve the problem. Allow our bill that passed here about 12 days ago to be voted on in the House that will allow this government to reopen and not attach any riders on it, cutting Medicare or Social Security or whatever your pet idea is. And then let's sit down and negotiate through the Appropriations Chairman, Barbara Mikulski, through the Budget Chairman, Patty Murray, and they sit down with their counterparts and we resolve our differences on spending, on deficit, and debt reduction. It's really easy. So what Senator Reid is saying is absolutely the right thing to say. Pay our bills, don't allow us to default, pay our bills, open up the government, and then we can talk about anything and everything that has to do with the budget. Now, here's the thing. Last week, when we were in the middle of this thing, I went home to see how the Affordable Care Act is working out in California. We are a state that has fully embraced the Affordable Care Act. And we're 38 million strong, and we have millions of uninsured. Millions of uninsured. And I am getting daily reports from constituents, and they're talking about the Affordable Care Act and what it means to them. Constituents like Janice Brown, a semi-retired travel agent from Prather, California. She called the helpline and she downloaded an application to buy a plan for $1,500 a month for herself and her husband. And she said, "That's $1,000 less than my current plan. I'm thrilled," she told the Associated Press. "The coverage is better. It's fantastic." Why do my friends on the other side want to shut down the government and stop Janice Brown, a semi-retired travel agent from my state, stop her from getting affordable health care? Why? Does it make them feel better to do that? I would hope not. How about Dr. Travis Sanchez? He runs a chiropractic clinic in Salinas. It's one of the small businesses buying coverage under Covered California. Under the Affordable Care Act, Sanchez plans to offer his 5-time employees health care coverage, which they currently lack. And you know what he says? Quote, "The Affordable Care Act is going to be life-changing for many of the people that I see as a clinician every day." Then I have Covered California told us about Paul Torigno. Let me say it again. Torigno of Sacramento. He enrolled in a bronze plan. In California, you can get a gold plan, a silver plan, or a bronze plan. And the higher the plan, the gold plan, the less of a copay. And the bronze plan is less costly. So this is what he said. He enrolled in a bronze plan that was extremely affordable. And he said, "Oh my gosh, the insurance has been going up for the last few years like crazy. All our money was going to pay for medical insurance, and now he's got this very affordable plan." Leslie Foster, a 28-year-old freelance filmmaker in Hollywood, told the Wall Street Journal he found a plan that will cost him $62 a month. Because Leslie earns $20,000 a year, federal assistance will pick up 3/4 of the cost of his premium. Leslie says he hasn't had comprehensive health insurance since 2006. Why are my colleagues on the other side of the aisle trying to stop Leslie from getting comprehensive, affordable health insurance? Because they didn't like the results of the election? Because they were mad that the Supreme Court said the bill was constitutional? I am at a loss to understand it. Then I have San Franciscan Paul Cello. He told KQED that he selected a plan that will save him more than $300 a month. He said, quote, "It's like a whole other world. The coverage is better, a lower premium, no pre-existing conditions, exclusions. I get mental health coverage, so there's way more coverage than I had, and I'm going to be saving." Madam President, these are real people with a heart and a pulse and a life and hopes and dreams. And they're finally getting health insurance. And my friends on the other aisle are stamping their feet and having a tantrum because they don't like it. I don't know why they don't like it. They ought to come to meet these people. I had Rachel Mansfield of La Quinta. Nothing could dissuade her. She sent in an application for Covered California on Tuesday. She's been waiting for the exchange to start so she and her husband could get health insurance. She got it. Her new premium will be around $400 for both of them, with higher quality coverage than she currently has. And I ask unanimous consent to place a number of other of these into the record.
Without objection.
But I really have to say that in the Washington Post this week, there's an op-ed piece about one of my constituents' experience with the Affordable Care Act. And this constituent of mine and her son were on the Lawrence O'Donnell show last night. And anyone who watched that show, anyone with a heart and a soul would understand how amazing it is for her that the Affordable Care Act passed. And let me tell you the story. Janine Reed is a writer from the San Francisco Bay Area. This is the title of her opinion piece that ran in the Washington Post. Quote, "Obamacare saved my family from financial ruin." Let me repeat the title. Obamacare saved my family from financial ruin. Well, her experience with her loving son, Mason. He had brain cancer, and he had to undergo major surgeries and multiple surgeries. he would have hit his lifetime limit, Madam President, and the family would have been driven into, her words, the financial abyss without the Affordable Care Act. You know what she says? She writes that the family thanks God and whoever else would listen for our good fortune to have coverage. And she ends her piece with this line: if I could get those who were trying to repeal this law on a conference call, I would explain this to them. I would tell them that while they were busy trying to derail the Affordable Care Act over the past 2 years, my son Mason has again learned to walk and to talk and to eat and to shoot a three-point basket. Why would anyone in the Senate, in the House, in the country want to hurt a family like that? I'm just saying, I don't get it. Because a law is a law is a law. And we don't decide that one day we're going to undermine a law. You don't do that. You live by the law. You want to change it? Of course you had a chance. They tried 43 times to repeal it. It didn't get repealed. They shut down the government over it, and it didn't get repealed, and it won't get repealed. And my constituents are not going back. No one's going to take away their benefits. And you know what? Most Americans may not even realize the benefits they're already getting under the Affordable Care Act. Wherever they live, whether it's in your state or my state, Madam President, 3 million adults are now covered through their parents' plan. 3 million young adults are now insured through their parents' plan. And 71 million Americans are getting free preventive care like checkups, birth control, and immunizations. Let me say it again. Millions of Americans are benefiting from the Affordable Care Act. 71 million Americans are getting free preventive care like checkups, birth control, and immunizations. 3 million young adults are now insured through their parents' plan. Why do my colleagues want to take that away from Americans? Why do my colleagues shut down the government? Because they don't like this? What is it they don't like about this, Madam President? That some young person doesn't have to fret? Or parents don't have to be worried sick that their kid doesn't have health insurance? No. 17 million children with pre-existing conditions like asthma and diabetes can no longer be denied coverage. Why do my friends want to take that away from the families of the United States of America? Why? Why they shut down the government to take that away? What are they thinking? Insurers can't cancel your health insurance because you get sick. Madam President, you and I know you could be going along 100 miles an hour and all of a sudden get an illness and be shocked. And all of a sudden, imagine getting a note from your insurer, sorry, Senator Boxer, you just got sick and we're canceling your health insurance. It happened every day in the week. It can't happen anymore. Why do my Republican friends want to cancel out that benefit? No lifetime limits on coverage. I just told you about the woman who lives in the San Francisco Bay Area whose son was born with a brain tumor, who needed constant operations. They hit up against the lifetime limit, and when Obamacare went into effect, otherwise known as the Affordable Care Act, guess what? No more lifetime limits, and the child was saved, and the family was saved from financial ruin. These are just some of the benefits that are going into effect now, are in effect. And then the Republicans said, oh, the Affordable Care Act is going to make everything cost so much. No. Health care costs growing at the slowest rate in over 50 years. And insurance companies have to justify premium hikes, and we're getting back checks if they overcharge us. Listen, 8.5 million Americans have received rebate checks from their insurance companies because of the Affordable Care Act. Do my friends want to get that money back away from the people? They shut down the government. They must think that's a really bad idea. I can't answer the question as to why they want to take away these benefits, but I can only guess at their motivation. They're throwing a temper tantrum. They don't like the way the election turned out. They don't like what the Supreme Court did. A law is a law. I don't get it. Speaker Boehner said he's shutting down the government, punishing people because of Obamacare. We told him you can't stop it. He tried and failed 43 times to repeal it. He stamped his foot, and he shut down the government. Well, now that we've proven to him that he can't stop the Affordable Care Act, now that he sees how many people are benefiting from it, open up the government. 11 days. Shut down the greatest country in the world. Now, I have to tell you, in my great state, and we could all talk about our states, and I know, Madam President, you did, we have a magnificent national park called Yosemite. Honest to God, the first time I stepped on that valley floor, I thought I was in heaven. I'd never seen anything like it. 3,500 Park Service employees have been furloughed, 600 of them at Yosemite. And here's the thing that people don't seem to understand. It's not only the pain of the people who have saved to get to a place like Yosemite and saved for their families and are looking forward to this opportunity. It's also the small businesses that surround it, the park, that surround the park. Douglas Shaw, co-owner of Yosemite Bug Rustic Mountain Resort, may have to lay off 30% of his staff. He said, quote, "We're a good example of a business that could die if this continues. This is all we've got, and honestly, I'm scared." I don't think a lot of people realize how important this issue is for so many of us whose livelihoods are at stake. Derek Arakalian and his wife Marielle were laid off from their jobs at Yosemite. They held a yard sale to raise money. They held a yard sale to raise money. We've got a new little boy and a lot of expenses. We need to make money to pay our bills. Why are they shutting down the government? The Affordable Care Act is moving forward. A law is a law is a law is a law. And we all have our problems with issues. As I said, serving here for a long time, opposing wars, opposing tax cuts to the wealthiest among us, opposing rollbacks in environmental regulations that I thought were critical. Seeing us turn away from sensible ways to protect our people, yeah, I wasn't happy. I have a right not to be happy, and they have a right not to be happy. But I don't have a right to decide which laws I'm going to say should be enforced. I have an obligation, if I don't like a law, to work my heart out in the next election and change things. That's what you do in a democracy. You don't pick and choose. And then they have their little bills coming over here. I call it governing by press release. Something gets hot, they hear a story that I'm going to tell, and say, oh, we'll open up that little segment. We don't run a country that way. We don't run a country by press release. We don't run a country in order to get political cover. We have an obligation to keep the doors open, to make sure things work better, to negotiate over budgets, not negotiate by taking hostages, and this time the hostages are the American people, people like Doug Shaw, co-owner of Yosemite Mountain Resort, people who are laid off. Firefighters at the Forest Service, they're working without pay. Lovely. We're getting our pay. And one of these firefighters says, most people here live paycheck to paycheck. It's a disgrace is what it is. Do you know the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention will stop its seasonal flu tracking program? They will furlough 9,000 employees. Now, my understanding is they've brought back some of their employees. But I got to tell you, they're not getting paid, and they're standing sentry. David Johnson of San Francisco is the CEO of GigaGen, which does immune system research to help organ transplants succeed. The NIH awarded him a small business grant of over $1 million, and he's already hired staff, but he can't get the funds until the shutdown ends. So here is a private party, a CEO of a company that does immune system research to help organ transplants succeed. How many of us have read about some of our people who get into trouble because their body rejects the organ? Here's a guy out there getting $1 million from the NIH, and he can't get the funds. I'll tell you, it's shocking. Why did they shut the government down? They don't like the health care bill that's helping so many people. Now they don't even talk about, now they talk about cutting Social Security and Medicare. That's their new dream. That's what they want now. I don't know how that makes us a better country, but they can explain it for themselves. Open up the government, pay your bills that you incurred, stop a default, and then we can negotiate. The President's been clear. There is nothing he won't talk about. Now, I want to take a minute, speaking as the chairman of the Environment and Public Works Committee and a member of the Commerce Committee. 93% of the EPA, 93% of the employees at the Environmental Protection Agency have been furloughed. And here's the thing. The Environmental Protection Agency has the support of about 75% of the American people, if not more. They're under attack constantly. That's one reason you never saw a little mini bill to restore the Environmental Protection Agency. They don't care over there. But what do these employees do? They guard our landmark environmental laws. They ensure our drinking water is safe, that our rivers are safe to swim in, that our air is safe to breathe. They make sure that Superfund sites are cleaned up. 500 Superfund sites, to be exact, 505, they've stopped the cleanup. And if you've ever looked at what is a Superfund site, I can tell you it's a toxic brew. Toxins that you know can hurt you, like arsenic, benzene, you name it, the worst things. Now, I want to ask my Republican friends, you shut down the government because you want to stop the Affordable Care Act. You're also now stopping cleanup of Superfund sites in your own communities, where they're a threat to children, to pregnant women, and to our families and our seniors. How does that make us a better country when we have no inspectors on the ground, not one in California, to make sure the air is safe and the water is safe? Not one single inspector on the ground. Then, if you care about farming, and I know most of us do, EPA is responsible for the inventory of pesticides that are imported from abroad. This means that millions of dollars of imported agricultural chemicals have been stuck at U.S. ports because EPA personnel are not on hand to approve them for entry. This could be devastating for our agricultural economy and further raise food prices for consumers. Somebody explain to me how a government shutdown helps the farmers who are waiting for these pesticides to be cleared by the EPA. Somebody explain it to me. Somebody explain it to me. How it helps to have a government shutdown when we have many, many road projects that are just getting ready to go forward, but we don't have any of the agencies ready to complete the studies to make sure they are safe enough to go forward. There are hundreds of thousands of jobs at stake, and most of it, when it comes to the highway bill, in the private sector. And here's one we just learned yesterday. I say to my colleagues, 92% of workers at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission have been furloughed. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission fulfills a critical mission. Do you want to hear what it is? I will tell you what it is. The NRC was created, quote, to ensure the safe use of radioactive materials. Now, anyone who's been alive the last year or so knows about Fukushima, knows about what happened to the people there, understands when you're dealing with radioactive materials what you are dealing with. You are dealing with danger. And the NRC had to furlough 92% of the workers because the Republicans don't like the Affordable Care Act and shut down the government. Open it up. Enough is enough. Give the people back the government they asked for in this last election. You don't like it? I understand it. I didn't like it many times in my life, but you know what? I dealt with it. Grow up. Curling up in a corner and having a temper tantrum with your blanket and your teddy bear is not the right way to deal with this. Open up the government. Sit down with us and tell us what it is you want to fix. We've already agreed to a low number in the continuing resolution, a number we don't like at all. We think it's too low. We think it's a hardship. We agreed to the lower number because we wanted to have a chance to negotiate. Senator Mikulski is ready. Senator Murray is ready. We tried 21 times to get to conference with them and negotiate a budget. 21 times they objected. And then they have, I have to use the word now, the chutzpah, hope you know what it means, Madam President, to say that we won't negotiate when we tried 21 times to go to conference. No inspectors on the job to make sure the air is clean, to make sure the water is safe, to make sure the nuclear power plants are safe. You know, the Republicans talk about the parks, and I appreciate it, but they fail to mention that the Army Corps manages 12 million acres of public lands and waters nationwide. And the recreation areas host, listen to this, 370 million visits annually. These recreation areas support local businesses like resorts, marinas, outfitters, grocery stores, gas stations, hotels, which provide goods and services to visitors, as well as boosting our nation's economy. Let me tell you a story. Because of this Republican shutdown, the Corps closed Lake Mendocino, which is located north of San Francisco. Lake Mendocino hosts 500,000 visitors annually, and in 2010, visitors spent $12.7 million at businesses within 30 miles of Lake Mendocino, supporting 106 jobs and $2.8 million in labor income. So we get a little mini bill over there, open up the parks. No, no, no. Open up the government. Open up all our recreation areas. Don't do this government by piecemeal, government by press release, government by your favorite agency. It's ridiculous. Let me just say, let me be clear. No party, Republican or Democratic Party, no party has the right to say to a community, you will thrive, but you will die. No party has the right. I have a community near Los Angeles. It's called University Park. The LA Times did a big story. The children there are suffering illness, and everyone believes it's from an oil and gas site nearby. It's an environmental issue. The kids are suffering. We don't know what's wrong with them. We called the EPA. They said, Senator, we'll be right on it. The government shut down. I don't have any inspectors in California. Those kids are sick. So we get a small bill. Let's help the kids with cancer. Of course we want to. What about these kids? We don't know what they have. No party, Republican or Democratic, should say, this child lives and we're not sure about this child. This is not America. This is one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It's not for who the Republicans decide they want to fund. It's for all of us to decide. Open up the government. You shut it down because of health care you don't like, the Affordable Care Act. I appreciate that. You can fight that. You can sit. The president, we were with him for a couple of hours yesterday. Republican senators were with him today. He said he'll look at everything. But don't keep this government closed, and don't bring us to the first default we ever had. The National Transportation Safety Board furloughed 380 of its 400 employees. In my state, we had an investigation going on into the Asiana Airlines Flight 214 crash. This crucial hearing was to include testimony from foreign officials from Asia. Its postponement and the ongoing shutdown will delay the entire investigation. We need to know what went wrong. But this shutdown has shut down that investigation. 2 weeks ago, there was a small plane crash at the Santa Monica airport, killing 4 people. And the NTSB is unable to investigate the crash. They had to take all their materials and stick it in a file, and hopefully someday they'll come back to it. Open up this government. Don't say this community will thrive and that one will die. This family will get help and this won't. This federal worker will get paid, but we're not sure about that federal worker while they take their checks. I got to tell you, this is stunning. It's no wonder the American people are expressing their views. And I hope they'll listen and they'll continue to put pressure on those who have this government shutdown. There's no winners in a shutdown. It's devastating. And my friends keep saying they don't want it, so open up the government. It's easy. We did it here. It's waiting over there for John Boehner to call it up. Don't add your pet peeves to it. I got a lot of pet peeves I'd like to add to it, too. This shutdown is devastating for our workers, for our businesses, for our contractors, for our economy. Speaker Boehner, put that bill on the floor. Let's open this government. Let's not default for the first time. Let's look at what Ronald Reagan said about default. Do we have that? Now, I got to say, I was actually here in the House when Ronald Reagan was the president. And here's what he said about default. The full consequences of a default, or even the serious prospect of default, by the United States are impossible to predict and awesome to contemplate. Denigration of the full faith and credit of the United States would have substantial effects on the domestic financial markets and the value of the dollar. Ronald Reagan. We named an airport after him, a building after him. Let's pass this debt ceiling in his honor. He warned us. What's gone wrong with the party of Ronald Reagan? Where have they gone? What are they thinking? Shut down the government. The last time they did it, it cost a fortune. The last time they played with the debt, it cost a fortune. We hear people dumping bonds, dumping American bonds. Is that what you want? What do you want? Open up the government. Let the people have their government. It's a self-inflicted mess. You know, it's like you wake up in the morning and it's a pretty nice day. You feel pretty good. You know, you feel pretty good. and you all of a sudden decide you're going to hit yourself in the head with a brick. Oh, my God. And these little mini bills, how ridiculous. That reminds me of one of my friends gave me this analogy, which I think is right on, which is you see a woman drowning and you grab her and you take her halfway to the shore and you leave her, and she drowns anyway. That's what these mini press release bills are. It's like, you know, you find someone just bleeding to death, but you only sew them up halfway. It's a self-inflicted mess. That's the bad news. The good news is, because it's self-inflicted, it's easy to get out of it. All they have to do over there, Madam President, as you know, and you serve there proudly, take up the Senate bill and pass it. It has the Republican budget numbers in it, which we really think are way too low, but we agreed to it as a compromise because we didn't want to see the government shut down. Take up the bill and pass it. Then we can talk about all these issues. And don't allow the greatest nation in the world to default. Denigration of the full faith and credit of the United States would have substantial effects on the domestic financial markets and the value of the dollar. I used to work on Wall Street a very long time ago. And I could tell you saw what happened when the markets thought we weren't going to get together and resolve this default situation. Market started to go down 300 points, 200 points. And then at the mere hope that we could fix this problem, the market shot up. The markets are watching. They know what's happening here. We're going to have a chance to vote to lift the debt ceiling to make sure we don't default on bills that were already incurred. Let me be clear on that. We just are talking about paying the bills we already incurred. You've got to do that when you are a homeowner. You pay your mortgage, you pay your bills. And then they started to say, what's a default? That one was unbelievable. I looked it up in Black's Law Dictionary. You don't pay your bills as a default. Don't tell me you pay the interest on the debt that you cannot pay the other bills. No, 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 no. No, no. That's not Black's Law Dictionary definition. Pay your bills. Don't make this nation deadbeat. You want to treat your family that way, it's your choice. But this is the USA family. USA. We don't default. We don't threaten default. Ronald Reagan warned us. Open up the government, pay your bills. You know, it's basic stuff. It's not complicated. Majority Leader Reid has been clear. And you know, he's a guy who can compromise, negotiate, talk. He's been around a long time. But he just said it. Open up the government, pay our bills, and we'll negotiate. So, Madam President, we're going to hear a lot of words. But I just want people to understand why the government is shut down. The government is shut down because the House, Republican House, under the leadership of John Boehner or Eric Cantor or Paul Ryan, we're never sure every day it's someone new, but it's supposed to be John Boehner. Fine. I like him. That doesn't change where we are. They refuse to take up the bill that opens up the government. And let's be clear, just until November, and it takes the numbers the Republicans like and we don't like, and we say, okay, we'll give you that, let's just keep the government open. We did it over here, and I thank my Republican friends who voted to allow us to vote on that bill. That was a hard vote for them, and I'm very appreciative of that. All Boehner has to do is take up that bill and pass it. That's all. And then we're out of the shutdown mess, and that self-inflicted wound is gone. We can negotiate over the budget as we should, and then all they have to do is join us and make sure that we do not default for the first time in history and make this country a deadbeat nation. How horrible, how embarrassing. I'll close with this. This self-inflicted wound mattered so much that President Obama had to cancel a trip to the Asian countries. And that trip was important for our economy and for jobs and to get foreign investment. They didn't care. So we did our best, and we sent our best face that we could. Senator Kerry, Secretary of State, did his best. But I know that that was not a good thing to do because it gave China the upper hand. And China made some cracks about the dysfunction here and the rest. We are dysfunctional here, self-inflicted dysfunction, self-inflicted crisis. This isn't Hurricane Sandy. This isn't the horrible, horrible blizzard that happened in South Dakota, and I just want to send my best to our colleagues there who are suffering because of what happened from that blizzard. Someday we'll talk a little bit about climate change, and maybe we can move forward, the extreme weather that's happening, but I'm not going to talk about that now. I've got enough problems. What we need to do today is the right thing for the country. Open up the government that belongs to the American people. It's easy. That's our job. Make sure we don't default. And then we sit down as friends, as colleagues, across party aisle, and we negotiate all the important issues that Republicans care about and Democrats care about. And I look forward to those negotiations. And I hope that as they are going on now in little back rooms around us, that we're finding a way out of this mess. But we cannot forget what brought us here. And the reason I wanted to be here today, to make it known in this congressional record, the harm that has been done. There's a reason why there hasn't been a shutdown since 96. There's a reason. Because the people who lived through it recognized it was devastating. I guess the memory faded. There's people say, oh, there have been 19 shutdowns. Yeah, but there hasn't been one in all those years since 1996. It's a lot of years. And the reason is it was devastating. So I want to make the record. I wanted to put in the record, first of all, how the Affordable Care Act is benefiting the people of this country already. Yes, it's had its major problems on getting on your page and the rest. We had that the first day in California where we had millions of people visits to the site, millions. We didn't expect it. It's going to be smooth. It's going to be smoothed out. And yes, there'll be ways to fix it. But I wanted to put in the record the individual stories of my people and how they're benefiting. And how it seems to me so counterintuitive to stop a law that was passed almost 4 years ago, held up by the Supreme Court, upheld by the Supreme Court, and now finally going into place. It's just wrong. And to shut down the government because of such a law that is bringing peace of mind to so many. Tens of thousands already in California signed up. So I had to make that point. And I also wanted to reiterate what Ronald Reagan said, President Reagan, about playing with the full faith and credit of the United States. And I want the American people to think about why we are in this place and how they can stop this from ever happening again, because I think it's a disgrace and it's wrong. So thank you very much. I yield the floor.
Madam President.
The senator from South Carolina.
Thank you, Madam President. I have enjoyed, well, not really, but I have listened to my colleague to the left talk about just opening the government back up. And I think to myself, as she used the analogy of the saving someone's life, dragging them halfway to shore and then stopping, I think to myself that when you think about the veterans, the House of Representatives passed a bill to fund the Department of Veterans Affairs. I think about all those veterans who served our nation, put their lives on the line, and the House of Representatives sent over a bill to fund the very crucial needs in our veterans. And yet, the Senate has failed to take it up. I think about the national parks and all the opportunities that we have to see our parks open back up, see our veterans not denied at the World War II. But no, the Senate refuses to take it up. I think about NIH and the critical funding that is necessary to continue the research, and yet our friends on the left refuse to take up this critical piece of legislation. So I enjoy being lectured to. I call it the Democrat lecture series. But at the end of the day, we ought to have action, and not simply words. And I like in the fact that I understand that it's important for us to figure out who to blame. In politics, the lowest common denominator is always fear. We have to have someone to blame, and our friends on the left do a very good job of assigning blame to someone, someplace, somehow, all the time. But what we really need is leadership. Not more information about the polls, but leadership. We need people committed to the cause. In a town that seems to be the epicenter of activity for the economy, we have 2/3 of this legislative process, the White House and the Senate, being run by our Democrat friends. And yet they want to blame the Republicans for the shutdown. I would call this, no question, undeniably, the Democrat shutdown. I hope we find ourselves in a position to tell our veterans we weren't kidding when we made the promise. Promises made should be promises kept. There ought to be no question of our commitment, and we've seen that commitment demonstrated by our friends in the House, Republicans and Democrats, working together to pass legislation to take care of our veterans. We need more of that. That's leadership, working together, finding common ground to take care of those who've made America possible. But not today, not in this Senate, not when those bills sit idle. But the men and the women who served our country cannot sit idle. They go without their benefits. I wonder why. I wonder why we are not seeing the type of sense of urgency to take care of those areas where there's full agreement. Why are we not taking advantage of the opportunities presented to us on a consistent basis by our friends in the House of Representatives? I don't understand that, Madam President. I simply do not understand that. I will say that I do find it very difficult to find common ground in the United States Senate at times. It can be very difficult for Republicans and Democrats to find something that we have in common. I believe that we strive to work in a bipartisan fashion on a consistent basis, and I will tell you that on the most important issues it's very difficult. But I have been encouraged in my research in the last few days of looking for common ground. I've been encouraged that I have found some friends on the left that actually seem to agree with my position on some of the most important issues facing the nation today. I'll even quote some of my friends to the left as I think through this debt ceiling debate. As a matter of fact, one quote, the first quote, I'll start with my friends on the left. Quote, "The fact that we are here today to debate raising America's debt limit is a sign of leadership failure. I concur with my friend on the left." The suggestion, another quote, "Interest payments are a significant tax on all Americans. A debt tax Washington doesn't want to talk about." I concur and agree with my friend to the left. Another quote, "Increasing America's debt weakens us domestically and internationally. Leadership means that the buck stops here." I agree with my friend on the left. My colleague on the left is now the President of the United States. These were quotes from Senator Barack Obama. Madam President, our President of the United States and our Vice President combined voted approximately, I think it was 10 or 11 times, not to raise the debt ceiling of our country. They called it a failure of leadership. I think it's interesting, Madam President. As a small business owner for the last 15 years, I've had the opportunity to borrow what I considered at the time real money. Now that I'm in Washington, I have to redefine the definition of real money. But at the time I was trying to get my business started, and I went to a bank to borrow some money, and the banker had some very interesting questions for me. He wanted to know how I was going to pay it back. He wanted to know what assets that I was willing to put up in order to receive the resources that I needed to fund my business. I see the debt ceiling debate as a debate over how we explain to our investors, the American taxpayers, that we are handling responsibly the underlying causes for the need to increase our debt. I cannot tell our investors that we are handling our debt, our spending responsibly. I cannot tell our investors that we have a plan to balance our budgets. I cannot tell our investors, the taxpayers of America, that we are even thinking about controlling our spending. No, as a matter of fact, over the last 5 years, we've spent nearly $5 trillion more than we've brought in. And our friends on the left want to have a serious conversation about the spending of this country. I cannot tell our investors, the American taxpayers, I can't tell them what I want to tell them, but I can tell them that we do not deserve an increase in the debt ceiling unless we produce a plan. I can tell our investors here at home that we do not deserve an increase without balancing our budgets. I can tell them, the taxpayers of America, that until we are willing to cut our spending at the same rate that we increase our credit card limits, we don't deserve their confidence in raising the debt ceiling. Some would ask us, well then, Senator Scott, where, pray tell, would you find the revenue? We've heard from the friends in the House of Representatives that there's just no more money for us to cut. We can't find any place to cut anything in this $4 trillion spending plan. Really? Well, there are many options on how to cut spending here in America, and here are some very simple ones. Senator Tom Coburn regularly shares reports on government waste. Last year, he showed how the Market Access Program had provided $20 million to the Cotton Council International. And they used it to create reality TV shows in India intended to promote the use of cotton. India, for the record, is an exporter of cotton and produces twice the amount the U.S. does. The OMB released a report that improper payments for Medicare amounted to $47.9 billion in 2010, or 9% of Medicare's budget. The Chamber of Commerce looked at the Davis-Bacon requirements and found that it inflates the cost of federal construction projects by as much as 15% and costs the taxpayers over $1 billion annually. 1,500. There are over 1,500 programs in the United States government that are in duplication, costing the taxpayers more than $400 billion. Madam President, I would like to be able to share with the investors of America, the taxpayers, that we have a plan. I'd love to share with the taxpayers of America that one day we will balance our budget. I would love to tell the taxpayers of America, our investors, that they can have confidence in our ability to lead us in such a way that future debt increases will be less likely to happen. Madam President, I have not seen such a plan. I've not heard conversations about controlling our debt, only conversations about increasing the limit to create more debt. Madam President, I am concerned that as we wrestle with the problems of today, we have no focus on tomorrow. I hope that this body will work diligently, not only to have a conversation about the debt limit of America, but a conversation about how we take care of the underlying problem. Thank you, Madam President.